But the truth is, people don't get hired because they kind of know 12 different things. They get hired because they're really good at one thing. And honestly, the more I focused on one area, the more confidence I got. My projects got better, and I could finally explain what I was good at on my resume and for interviews. So this made me realize that depth is what separates you from everyone else. And it's not
First of all, I disagree so much with this. Let me actually make this into a video as well. The generic advice that depth matters, SWEs. This is a common sentiment I've been hearing about on YouTube, going around a little bit. That you should know your stuff, you should know the internals, you should know the ins and outs of systems, and pretty much like I've been pretty dissatisfied with this kind of advice now. So let me discuss this a little bit. The whole thing, my whole point about this argument is that the definition of freshers haven't changed. It hasn't changed. In the whole AI era, in the whole tools era, in the whole era of you having all the helper tools that you will need throughout your dev career, the definition of freshers has not changed. They are still clueless people. They are still lacking something which we call experience, and this is where the industry had to bear an L because of that. Everybody is expected to be up and running with everything production ready code and production ready experience in somebody who hasn't worked a day in the industry, right? So the same thing that this guy said, depth separates you from everyone else. What is depth really? I think what depth really is your understanding of algorithms and your understanding of system architecture. That's what it is. When it comes to working in the industry and building products and tackling real world problems that you get given, either in the form of Jira ticket or just a requirement sheet, it actually changes the dimensions when it comes to your knowledge. Then those knowledge is not that useful. It is useful. I'm not going to say that DSA is not useful. It is, but now you're tackling a different dimension of problems, which you never did before. The thing with college students trying for the depth understanding of systems is that they're not given a system that has 10,000 users making this much money every month on subscriptions, and then they are given tasks on that. Every college student has that happening with them, who is aspiring to work for a different company. That is the problem that I see in this advice, that you should pursue depth. Like, yeah, you should pursue depth in understanding things, but ultimately the definition of freshers, it's not going to change. You're still as clueless as a normal fresher was 10 years or 15 years ago entering the industry. You can have knowledge of all the tools at your disposal. You can have knowledge of algorithms, architecture, what the general practices of the industry are. But at the end of the day, you are not battle tested. And you cannot have that happen to you unless a company gives you the chance to be battle tested. This is where the industry had to bear an L. This false hope of AI being the end all be all kind of product for fresher software engineers is where the disconnect happened. The bar for freshers went up. It did. Let's just face it. It did. Freshers are now expected to know so much more. But at the end of the day, they are still clueless. Have an issue in AWS load balancer not propagating information to Amazon SQS based on a target group configuration. Give that to any fresher, they'll be clueless what's happening now. They'll have to spend time on it. They can't have the same experience as a 5 or 6 years experienced software developer. That's the difference that we say experience. You can chase depth, but you cannot get experience without having a job. I mean, that's just common sense. But this is where the problem happened with the industry thinking that freshers are now capable of doing everything in a production environment. No, they are not. They are not. They still have to spend time with the systems to understand the ins and outs of systems. They still have to understand the complexities of using one approach over the other approach. Do I use caching in it? If I do, what will the CPU utilization will look like? Do I structure my database in a different way to perform optimized SQL queries? Do I keep my database structure in a way that if my client says tomorrow that there is some change or requirement, then I'd be able to swiftly put that in without affecting my database architecture much. These are the things that no matter how much depth you pursue, you're not gonna get. You can read about solid principles, you can read about waterfall model, you can read about agile methodology, all you want, and you will have that impression that now you know the depth. But the day you are given a production task, not a production task, more like a company software task that has to go in production, that's when the reality will hit you. And this is where industries need to realize this disconnect of definition, and they need to realize this. No matter how many books you cram, no matter how many AI tools you have at your disposal, freshers are still clueless, and that's not their fault. This is where people like us should step up and mentor students like that. Yeah, you can study, but at least you have to be under my supervision. It's our responsibility as seniors to provide sandboxes for freshers so they can play around in it and break things without worrying about it too much. And only when they are confident about the ins and outs, that's when you take over to the real environment. But industry, no, they are not ready to believe this just yet. And it's because of the AI peddlers and YouTubers, obviously. Like, I'm a YouTuber, obviously I hate other YouTubers. But at the end of the day, if any industry recruiter is watching, please understand, no matter how many tools, freshers' definitions is not going to change. And it won't change for the next 50 or 100 years. No matter how many tools you throw at them, they're not going to compensate for the lack of experience. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.